And I'm thinking about, there's so many threads in here. There's a moment you talk about Baudelaire and Jean Duval. And I want to quote this line because it's so interesting. And you can get some context to this. I'll just give the line. All right, so Duval was a modern subject, and she was objectified, cosmopolitan and global, yet flattened by lust and disgust, pleasure and denigration. These are the central features of how racism would be performed in the 20th century and into our 21st. And I read that and thought, my first thought was Beyoncé. Like Beyoncé, this amazing woman who can sing, who can dance, who is stylish, who is intelligent, who is full of resilience. And she keeps experimenting as an artist. And whatever she tries, people go, that really ain't what it's all about.
Right.
And her verses Taylor Swift. And then she finally wins last night and she has to look surprised. Like, wait, me? I'm worthy of a prize? I can't believe this. To me, it's just all connected.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. And so this is, Baudelaire's mistress, right?
That's all she was, apparently.
That's why she in this brilliant cosmopolitan woman. And there is, when older folks used to tell us you have to work twice as hard to get half as far, that has never changed. But I think the thing that I'm sort of observing, and Bell Hooks actually did, and I remember talking to her about this, and she wrote about this, it's that, but it is also the simultaneously having people want something from you and also treat you as though you are repulsive.
Yes, exactly.
That and problematic and troubling, disturbing. It's and it winds up for me in the book. I talk about the way they use the N-word to describe fabrics and drinks and like all of these things that that intersection it's not one observation. It's disorienting, but it is also part of how race works. So we have to be very careful even about when there is pleasure taken in Black culture and art. That doesn't mean loving Black people. Yeah. Loving Black art doesn't mean loving Black people.
We were talking about, Senegal, for example. In the book, you mentioned the classic film Black Girl by Ousmane Sembène. And that young woman, has anybody ever seen Black Girl? Anybody ever seen Black Girl? It's a very interesting film.
Everybody should watch it if you haven't seen it.
It's a brilliant film. But what you're saying is all a part of that, because you have these French people, they're white, and it's 1960, and so to seem more cosmopolitan and intelligent, they bring her over from Senegal to be, their whatever you want to call it, domestic, I guess is the term they use, and yet they have no respect for her at all.
Right.
She thinks that she can go there and have this adventure.
Yeah.
She can, buy fine clothes and have these incredible moments. And yet they don't see her as anything other than a servant, a slave, basically. She's trapped and
she is out, effectively enslaved. Yeah.
I guess to your point, it's like they really want her because she makes them look better, but they don't want to respect her at all,
right?
Even for a moment,
and don't want her to dress. And she's told she can't wear the nice clothes. She has to. I mean, yeah, it's a
history repeats itself so much. I remember learning about here in New Orleans and the idea of the tignon.
Yeah,
and this is the sort of Civil War period, and we had sisters like wearing these amazing head wraps,
right?
Because people were mad about how beautiful their hair was,
right?
So they covered their hair up
in the head wrap, right?
And then a lot of the other ladies in town, white is like, y'all can't look that good.
Right.
No more colored head wraps. So like, all right, let's do white ones, just white head wraps, and they still look good. And it's like, when does it even end?
Right.
We've seen it in the kids who are like, oh, you have to cut your locks or cut your dreads or keep your braids neat, professional, these kind of things. It's just all tied together.
But I like that example because for me, it's one of the many examples of what it means that I think is sort of quintessentially Black American, is to create beauty at the site of wound. It is to, where there is wound, there is, and I don't mean romanticizing the ugliness. I mean that a way to make do and to sustain create a kind of spiritual fortitude is that in that location, in that zone of being denigrated, in that place to make something beautiful.
Yeah.
To be fully human.
I have so many moments in this book where like my breath is kind of caught. You know, these things that you noticed that were right in front of our faces. So there's a chapter here where you're talking about Ralph Ellison, who wrote Invisible Man, and you're calling him out. And I love Ralph, but I think you were 100% correct. And basically, Ellison is sort of making fun of this young man he encounters. Tell us about the young man he encounters.
Yeah, so he's making fun of this young man who, he's basically mocking the kind of Black power Afrocentricity moment, late 60s, early 70s. He has on a dashiki and he's like, oh, he's a Black man with blue eyes and an afro with a Japanese camera, and he thinks he's connected to Africa, but he's really, because Allison's point was always, like Albert Murray, they both had this formulation, which I disagree with, that we didn't have that much to do with Africa, right? That African Americans are wholly distinct, that we don't have, and I believe there are arteries. We're distinct peoples all over the world, but there are deep arteries of connection, and so he's making fun of this young man, but that blend, that improvisation that includes a connection to Africa and also Africans participate in as well is actually quintessentially Black. There's nothing to make fun of that. I mean, that's a kind of jazz-like existence. Yeah.
One of the things you do throughout the text, and I assume from a craft standpoint, this was on purpose, you'll have these amazing sort of runs where you will like state of fact, then you would sort of bring them together, and then at the very end, like a very short line. So in that chapter, I love this. After talking about Ellison and him making fun of him, you just go, this improvisation is really important to who we are as a people. Living is a doing.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's it right there.
Yeah.
How do you get to that place? It's just natural, right? That's just who you can't help it.
No, well, this is where I do take from Ellison. Ellison, because he did that. And he would talk about the stern discipline. And if you read his prose, it's very jazz inflected. It's shaped. He was a horn player. I mean, that's why he got to Tuskegee as a musician, right? And he became a writer later. And so, you think there's a musical quality to that. You're riffing, and then, that last piece, you have to be willing to bring it home, right? So it sort of becomes an homage to him, even when I'm arguing with him. The same thing. I do the same thing with all the people who I kind of fuss with, but Derek Walcott too, who I kind of fuss with. I'm trying to, that thing that musicians do where they're citing each other even as they're sort of competing. Yeah,
it's a beautiful thing. So at the midway point here, I just want to give our shout out to the man who's actually here in the house, BJ Johnson, owner of the bookstore Baldwin and Company.
Great.
Nothing short of almost a miracle, the fact that you have managed to do so many big events in this town. As a local, somebody who loves literature so much, this has been a salve for the community to have this and have this building constantly. So just thank you for what you do, brother. We love you so much.
We do.
So this is somewhat related to Ralph Ellison. When you were interviewed in some little newspaper called the New York Times a little while ago, there's a quote here from you. I'll just read it. If you make the South the repository for all the nation's sins, that bad place down there, then you have to think about what's going on in your own community. And Ellison was thinking about that a lot, him being from the South, going up to the North where everything is good, and then seeing, oh, it's kind of just as bad down up here in the North as it is, down in the South. So I'm just curious, your thoughts as somebody who has lived in several places. You have come south to America, back home, been in Alabama, been in New Orleans. How do you see the sort of dichotomy between how people see the South versus the North and I guess the problems with both areas?
Yeah, well, I mean, how did Malcolm put it? Everything south of Canada is the South. But it's not the same, right? If we're talking about interpersonal racism, there's no question that all of the regions of the country are very good at that. Some of the harshest conditions exist in the South, but that's because that's where the majority of Black Americans have always lived, right? So where the people are is where it's, and we see that in incarceration, and we see that in life expectancy, and we see that in many ways. I think, though, that I mean, if we're talking specifically about Black experience, I think the resources to withstand it are stronger in the South, right? That we have more intact communities. That's my 2 cents. But in terms of like, the story that I was important for me to try to tell in South America is that you cannot you can't siphon off. Like people would always say, and when I was growing up, people would say, oh, I'm scared. Somebody just said that the other day on my Instagram. I'm scared of Alabama. So I was like,
I see that too quite often.
Right. Who lives? This is a person who's from